think.
It says
Oh,
live.
no, it just goes to live. All right. Perfect. So my name is Justin Gaz. This is the Business, Life, and Brotherhood podcast. And today we've got Emi Preston on the line with us, which we're excited about. We're going to go over just kind of how she's chosen to do what she's doing. We'll tell a little bit of backstory. But first, let's just jump into your university. Give folks a 45-second bio of yourself, and then we'll jump in.
Sure. All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Emi Preston. I started at UW in 2010 and graduated in 2014. And I began as a business major. I was actually freshman direct to the Foster School of Business. And I did all the prereqs and decided that business was not for me. So I was kind of floundering at that time. I really did some soul searching and decided that I needed to keep working towards a major of some kind so I could graduate on time. And I picked Spanish because I knew that I was good at it and I'd studied it in high school and I loved it. So I ended up majoring in Spanish with a minor in Chinese, and I was able to continue with interdisciplinary honors. And during that time, I also studied abroad twice. I went to the University of Hawaii for a semester, and I was in Spain at the University of Cadiz for a quarter. And then after I graduated, I went to Taiwan and I taught English on a Fulbright grant for 1 year. Then I came back and I worked at Bright Horizons as a preschool teacher and kind of figured out my life. And I applied for a post-bac program in speech and hearing sciences. And what a post-bac is, for those of you who don't know, is basically you graduate from college the first time, you haven't figured out what you want to do, or you decide that what you wanted to do is not actually what you want to do. And then you figure it all out. So you have to come back and get a second bachelor's degree in the field of your choosing. And so speech language pathology, or better known as speech therapy, is one of those fields where you need a bachelor's to enter the master's program. So I had to go back and complete a post-bac in the field. And I'm currently still at UW. I was admitted to their master's in speech and hearing. So that is what I'm doing right now. It's a 2-year program. And after I graduate, I will be a speech therapist. And right now I'm thinking I probably want to work with kids, maybe in schools, but also maybe in clinic, maybe with adults. I'm open to all the possibilities.
That's awesome. That's really great. So how long, because I want to jump in and talk about chapter and stuff too, but how long did you go from after you graduated to teaching a little bit to deciding to come back? What was that year like, or how long did that take you to decide that you were going to go back for your post-bac?
Yeah, so after I graduated the first time, I went to Taiwan and I was teaching English there, and it was really kind of kind of like a vagabond time in my life. I wasn't really ready to settle on anything. And the idea of committing to a graduate program and a single career was really terrifying. And so I think I really needed that experience of being away and kind of just being lost for a little bit. And then I came back, and my mom was really the one who pushed me to go back to school. The way she was phrasing it was, you can, either way, you're going to be 27, like at some point. So I was 24 at the time, I think. And she was like, if you don't go back to school right now, you can be 27 working as a receptionist somewhere, or you could be 27 with a portable professional degree able to support yourself. And it's going to be interesting. It may not always be what you want, but it is going to give you a means of livelihood. It's your choice. What do you want? And I was like, okay, like when you put it that way,
that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense not to do it. So that's when my mom was helping me through all of this, and we kind of stumbled upon speech language pathology. And it was a really good fit, I think, because in this field, you get to think about speech language cognition, and you have that teaching aspect that I really like. I've always really enjoyed teaching, I've also worked kind of informally as a personal trainer. And so I really enjoy working with people and helping them reach their goals. But what I discovered in Taiwan, dislike the classroom management aspect of teaching. So with speech therapy, you take that out of the equation. So that's really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so have you finished your post-bac then and you're just waiting on the master's program, or are you?
Yeah, so I finished the post-bac over the summer, and I'm currently in the master's program. Right now, I'm doing observations at a school down by SeaTac, and I just follow the speech-language pathologist around, see what she's doing with all her kids. And next quarter, I'm going to be in clinic. I will have a client, and I'll be working with another graduate student clinician, and it's either going to be assessment or treatment. So either diagnosing a speech and language disorder or treating a speech and language disorder.
That's awesome. I love that so much, especially the guidance from your mom saying, hey, look, you're going to be 27. You can either keep doing what you're doing and float, or you can get something in your back pocket that you really enjoy. And finding that speech pathology, I mean, that's so in tune with your love of language and Chinese and Spanish, and that's awesome. So that's so cool. So tell us a little bit about kind of what chapter life. Were you involved in anything in chapter, any leadership roles or any projects there? Just quickly.
Sure. So I was at the Roe chapter at the University of Washington. I rushed and pledged fall of my freshman year, so fall of 2010, and I was a member for all 4 years. And I didn't step up to take on a leadership role until my senior year. So I was vice president of alumni relations. And I think looking back on it, I didn't accomplish all that I wanted to do. I had goals at the beginning, and I just didn't meet those goals or put on events that were the most beneficial for the chapter. I think I did accomplish some things, but retrospectively, I would have done things differently. And I think that's a really good perspective to have. Even though I didn't accomplish everything that I wanted to do, it was still a valuable experience. And, if you would term it a failure, I think failures are I mean, that sounds so harsh, but I think where you don't meet your expectations is where you really learn the most about yourself and what you can do moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the benefit of having that, quote, safe place of chapter to try something, to go for it and say, okay, what worked, what didn't, and then come out of the experience with so much hindsight of, gosh, if I was really going to do it, if I was going to do it again, this is where I would double down, and this is how I would make those connections. So
Absolutely.
VP of Alumni Relations, that's an awesome position, and it's super hard. It's one of the hardest positions because alumni are gone and they're working. Yeah. They're not on campus. They're hard to get a hold of, and they work. So was there anything that you took away from that, or any real big successes, or any big lessons, or anything that you took from trying to navigate that position? Because that's a hard position.
Yeah. A number of things come to mind. One of them is I am not good at delegating work. And so it was a challenge to manage a committee because I'm the kind of person where if I decide that it needs to get done, I'm going to do it right then and there, and it's going to become a priority for me. And everything else falls by the wayside. And when you are when you have a committee and you're supposed to be working as a team, you need to set goals and be okay, it's, and deadlines, it's okay not to have it done until the deadline, because the deadline is there for a reason. Or I don't know, just trusting other people to do the work. And even if it's not exactly how you would do it, it's okay because it gets done. So that was a big learning opportunity for me. Another one was just learning how to interact with alumni, especially ones that are much older than you and have been removed from academia for a significant amount of time, because it's really easy to reach out to people who have just graduated that you have personal connections with, but it's harder to reach out to ones that you don't really know. And I think there's something very intimidating about that. Like, what's an appropriate way to reach out? Like, what's the best modality? What should I say? Are they even going to be interested in like coming back to the chapter? And so that was another like moment of learning.
And that's still the product of networking, because the more that, at least for me, the more that I look into it and try to add value and try to, hey, connect people to each other and those types of things, it's in chapter, it kind of always felt like we were asking to come do this for us, not how we could add value to them, and make it something that they actually wanted to show up for. So those were my experiences. I don't know if you felt kind of the same way.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So when you look at kind of the future of speech pathology, and is that going to be something where you're going to own an independent practice, or is that something that you end up working? What does that look like for you, as a career? Like, how does that shape up? I mean, do you work for somebody else in that? How does that tease out?
So one of the beautiful things about speech language pathology is it's such a flexible career. And that is one of the reasons that I felt very okay with settling on it as a career, because I like to have my hands in many different pots at the same time. And it's really hard for me to settle confidently on one thing forever. Like, that is a terrifying idea for me. And so the nice thing with speech language pathology is you don't have to do that. You can start out working in schools. 50% of speech language pathologists are employed in schools, because typically children, when you think of people with a speech and language disorder, you usually think of kids who stutter or can't say their R's or their S's, and those tend to be developmental errors. But we treat across the lifespan, and so you can move from working in schools to working in a clinic, either a pediatric clinic or adult clinic, or a clinic that services all populations. You can specialize in like treating cleft palate or Down syndrome, all of those like co-occurring disorders. And you can eventually move on, 10, 20 years down the line, opening up your own practice. And that's kind of something on my radar. I think it'd be really cool to open up a bilingual clinic, specializing in Spanish and English, potentially employing other speech pathologists who can work with other languages. I think that would be really cool. There's a high need for people who can distinguish between a language difference and a language disorder, because someone who's acquiring English is not going to speak English as a native speaker would, but that doesn't mean that they have a disorder. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can really see how that lineage of school your way up to owning your own practice. And that sounds incredible, especially in the Seattle area. There is such a diverse population, and it's growing more diverse, and those languages, Spanish and Chinese, both prevalent, here. Lots of great communities of people who predominantly speak those languages.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be definitely, that would fill a tremendous need, I would think.
Yeah.
Do you find that, because you mentioned working as like a personal trainer, kind of, what aspect are you doing that in? Is that something that you're just, helping out friends, or are you working at a gym, or what's going on there?
Yeah. So, this was while I was in college. My sister and I ran a social media platform called Beauties, and it still exists. It's still on Instagram. We took down the Facebook page. I think we just made it unpublic, because it's not a focus of our lives anymore. But for 2 or 3 years, it was kind of a central point in my life. I and when I say informally personally training, I did get certified as a personal trainer, but it wasn't through NASM, which is the most widely recognized form of personal training accreditation. It was through WITS. And there are so many different like third-party personal training certifications you can get. There's no like national standard. NASM is just the most widely accepted. And so that's a whole different story. I would recommend going through NASM. Don't do the cheaper, faster version. Your training is not going to be as in-depth. And also, if you try to get a job as a personal trainer, people want NASM. They're not going to take WITS. They're like, what is this? We've never heard of this before. But back to benching beauties. So we were kind of just training our friends in the weight room. And we discovered that there was a need for like more people wanted to be trained than we were physically able to be with them in the weight room. And so we partnered with two of Yumi's friends. One was a computer science student at UW, and the other is a graphic design student. And we actually created an app, and it's in the App Store. It's called Benching Beauties, and it's available for free for iOS. And the target audience is women who are unfamiliar with weight training, but really it can be used by anybody. And it has, forget the exact number of workouts, but it has like structured workouts on there that are like grouped by body part. So like chest, triceps, shoulders, it's like one day, there's like leg day, and it kind of gives you some basic weightlifting exercises that you can do even without someone right there with you. And it's all written out, and they're like little videos of me and my sister doing the workouts, so you like know what to do.
That's awesome. That's incredible. And so you did that while you were in college?
Yeah, that was my senior year.
Yeah, that's like that's awesome. That's so cool. So so from that experience, like with working with people in the gym, right, and then building, do you feel like that kind of business ownership has played a role in kind of your desire to own your own firm, or has that something that's been always kind of underlying of taking the reins and creating something on your own? It sounds, I mean, you've done it already, so.
Yeah. First, I wouldn't say that I did it on my own, but I would say I took a lot of like leadership. It was definitely, I didn't do the coding. I just created the content. And then my sister was also supporting. But yeah.
So you did delegate. You did figure out how to delegate then.
Maybe a little bit. I was still pretty control freaky though. I think I've always enjoyed like creating things and owning them. Yeah, I wouldn't say that like creating the app specifically triggered an interest in like having my own speech and language clinic, but I would say they're related in the sense that I really like to own things and put my name on them, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And it shows too that you've done. It's not that you haven't, there's so many folks out there that say they're going to do this, they're going to do that, but they haven't really been able to check a box, along the path of like, I've got a buddy who's probably on his 8th business, and this one's really starting to take off. A couple of them, they didn't really do too much, good traction, but didn't do too much. And this is the one that he's on now. And they're all completely different because he just kept checking those boxes, learning those lessons, and applying. There's a lot of folks out there in the business world, as employees or as entrepreneurs themselves who don't things and check those boxes and just kind of trudge. So that's super interesting. Was there anything are you still there? I feel like I lost you.
I am.
Yeah. When you guys developed that app and put those training programs, basically put them on the in the App Store. Were there hurdles in that, or did you have to reach out to anybody? That you said you had a couple of friends that were in programming. How did you find the team that was able to put that together?
So it started because my sister's friend reached out to us, and he was like, hey, have you ever thought of developing an app? And we were like, no, but now we're thinking about it. So that's how that started. And then his girlfriend was the graphic designer. So it was actually kind of a dream team. It was really easy to access. And we didn't, for the app, we didn't really reach out to other people for development of the app, but we did gather a large group of people to test the content. So I wrote out like all of the workouts and kind of like what I wanted the app to look like. And there's a page that explains like the equipment and the terminology we use, because we're assuming that people using the app have no familiarity with lifting whatsoever. And so we solicited people that, like, I think we made Facebook posts and also just like reached out to people that we knew didn't have much experience in the weight room. And we would take them down into the weight room, like hand them a sheet of printed instructions and be like, okay, so like read this and like try to do the exercise and, you know, tell us where it's unclear. And so that took a month or two. We were just troubleshooting all of the content that we created and making sure that it was actually clear. And that was a really cool thing to do, because like when you're looking at it from your own perspective and you're familiar with everything, it seems like it should make so much sense. But then you hand it to somebody who doesn't have your brain and not in your body, and they don't know what's going on. So that was a cool experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that experience is great. I wish that more people made the opportunity to do something like that. And I love the fact that somebody just reached out to you to start that process. That's super cool. So with that in mind, I mean, that sounds like a pretty cool win. That sounds like a pretty cool, you know, check that box of success. What do you think? Because, you know, for the folks watching at home and people who may be still in chapter or who are, you know, graduated and they're looking to push themselves to the thing. What do you think kind of separates people from trying and having successes to those that just kind of, you know, settle for mediocrity, as it were?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe that's too harsh.
No, for sure. I really enjoy watching like those motivational YouTube videos. And I don't know, people who say stuff like that. I think there's something that I read a while ago that has really stuck with me. Like, people who are really great at what they do, it's not like they wake up every single day of their life with like passion and zest for what they do. They've developed discipline. And, you know, there are days when that passion and zest is there, but the discipline is what gets you through and gets you to that level of greatness. This is me. Like, I'm not like insinuating that I have reached the level of greatness or anything, but I think this comes, if you're talking about like accomplishing things and really like following through on what you say you're going to do, you can't rely on like inspiration to strike and to always be passionate about what you're doing. You have to when that falls away, you have to go back to your discipline and just wake up and work on it. Like, even when you don't feel like working on it, even when it seems like everything is going terribly and you're like, I don't even know if anyone's going to like this. Like, why am I doing this? Yeah. And just, I don't know, kind of having some faith as well that it's going to work out and people are supporting you.
100%. 100%. I mean, that's the thing, is they say that, you know, I've heard, I'll probably butcher the quote, but it was something about motivation is like you need it every day, right? And then, you know, inspiration is something that fades, but discipline will carry you through. So you build those habits, build those disciplines, and then when you wake up in the morning and you don't want to go to the gym, because you've built that habit and you've built that discipline, you still get yourself in there. It's awesome. What about, because when you like with building the app and kind of setting those goals, setting the goal of creating a community around fitness, and then now with you're kind of building to get ready to launch into speech pathology and eventually it sounds like open your own business. Do you find that creating those people and bring people into the circle that helps you keep going and find inspiration? I mean, how do you network? How do you connect with people that those things or that you can add value to or can bring value to you? Because they're two very different things that we're talking about here. But they're not. They're both about communities, right? And connecting with people and that sort of thing. Am I off base here, or am I seeing a clear picture?
Yeah, I think you were cutting in and out, but what I understood of your question was there are parallels between like this fitness world that I was so immersed in and this world of speech language pathology that I'm going into. And I think kind of what we wanted to touch on today is the power of networking and building human connections and to reach your goals and to create usable products, but at the same time, just like getting information and mentorship from people. And so it was, if we start in the fitness world, the more I kind of put it out there that I was doing this, and social media is such a great way to do that. People started reaching out to me, like on LinkedIn as well. And like when I put on there that I was working on an app, and then when I had finished the app, I had all sorts of I don't know if computer programmers is the right word, but like people who were working on apps and other kinds of technology, like that intersected with the fitness world, reaching out to me and asking if I would want to collaborate on stuff. And at that point, I had kind of moved out of lifting, and I think I was in Taiwan when a lot of people were reaching out to me, so it wasn't as feasible. But that was really cool. Just, putting your intentions out there and like people respond. And then in the realm of speech language pathology, it's all about human connection. Like my whole field is about communication, and when communication goes wrong, like what can you do to support it? Like when I was deciding on this field and like if I wanted to go back and do a post-bac, I really started researching online, and I started reaching out to people, and I would just talk about it in general. Like, I'm thinking about going back to school for this. And the more I did that, it seems like every other person I talked to knew someone who was either a speech therapist or was in school for becoming a speech therapist. And I was connected with so many random people. Like, there was a Thanksgiving dinner that I was volunteering at. I was like serving dinner. And I mentioned this to another server who is this elderly gentleman. And he was like, "Oh, my daughter lives in Florida and she's a speech language pathologist. Let me give you her phone number." And I did like a informational phone interview with this random person in Florida. And there were a bunch of experiences like that really solidified my choice to come back to school for this. And I think that the people that I talk to are really representative of the field that I'm in. Everybody's just so willing to go out of their way to help you and like give you information. And I think that is probably a universal theme, like across different fields. The more you put it out there that you're interested in it, people want to help you. They want to give you a leg up. And yeah, I don't know, that's really beautiful. And then in my program, in clinic, it's all about developing strong mentorship. And so right now I'm doing an observation rotation. And my speech language pathologist is so great. I've been learning a lot from her. And then next quarter when I'm in clinic, and then subsequent quarters that I'm in clinic, you have different clinical supervisors, and it's all about them observing you, like, praising you on things you're doing well, but also like huge focus on things that you need to improve on, and just supporting you every step of the way. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like, because I'm always interested in how people build the communities that they have around them. And it sounds like even just by kind of visiting with people and telling them about what you're, thinking about, that the communities that you're interested in being a part of are also kind of drawn to you that way. Did you feel like you were ever really working hard to network, or working hard to build a community, or did you just kind of feel like all those goals that the community kind of evolved around you and your goals?
I think, I would say I identify more with the latter of what you said. Like, the more you put it out there, the community is kind of drawn to you. It's an interesting phenomenon, like attracts like, or whatever. It was kind of cool to see how it kind of organically evolved.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that has to do a lot with people who feel really aligned in what they're doing, and the other people who are doing the same thing are drawn to that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
People who, we make fun of networking is such a dirty word. You always think of the person who goes to the cocktail party and passes out all their business cards, but it doesn't make any sense at all to anyone. Versus, the person who has a story to tell, who has a commitment, who has alignment, who is, knowledge in those people who can help. So, I wanted to ask, because you're on this, you've done so much already, and you're on this path, which I'll be excited to see your firm open up when the time is right. But with all that you've done now, is if you could go back to because you joined the business fraternity, stayed in with the business fraternity, and then came out. But if you could go back to your high school senior self and give yourself 2 real tangible pieces of advice that would help you accomplish the things that you really, when you look back, you're really pumped faster, or learn something more, and been able to give that advice to your 18-year-olds who started at UW, what are 2 pieces of like super tangible, super realistic advice you would give yourself?
Wow. So many things. And at the same time, I think the journey is all part of it, right? Like, you can give someone advice, but if they're not in a place to accept that and like make a change for themselves, it doesn't mean anything. But advice that I would give my 18-year-old self, the first one would be to not to hang out with people that I didn't really love. Like, I had a group of friends that were kind of like by association my friends, like through my boyfriend, and we were together like my freshman year of college, and they weren't people that I wanted to be. I don't know. I think I wanted to branch out and meet more people, but I kind of boxed myself into spending a lot of time with this one group of people that wasn't exactly people of my choosing. Like, nothing wrong with these people, but so I think just being confident enough to do my own thing at the beginning of college. At the same time, is really important to go through that experience and realize that I really didn't like it, and that motivated me to make a change. And then the second piece of advice, I think, would be to be confident in who I am and what I want, and really feel okay about acting on what I want. Because when I started out at UW, I mentioned that I was a business major, and I did all the prereqs, and it was winter quarter my sophomore year. I decided I wanted to change my major, and I was actually really depressed. I was wondering if UW was even the right school for me. And it was, I think anybody who's changed their major has gone through this very soul searching process of like, who am I and what do I want in life? And like, how is what I'm studying aligning with who I am and what I want? And I just really didn't like the focus in business school on money and like everything revolving around money. And of course, like, the business is everywhere, like in speech language pathology. Yes, absolutely business. But at the same time, I wanted to be in a field where there wasn't so much of a focus on money specifically. And it was really difficult to go to my parents, especially my dad, and say, I don't want to continue down this path. And I think there were, and like, not unique to my experience, but there are a lot of parents out there who like impose their, lost dreams of youth on their children. And then when you don't want to follow through with those dreams, it's just, earth shattering. So yeah, that was another thing. So just becoming strong in who I am and what I want. And like, it's going to be a rough ride, but you'll be okay. You'll pull through.
No, I love it. I love it. Especially the message about, kind of feeling like you were thrust upon this, group of people that you didn't necessarily identify with. And there's so much of I think it's Jim Rohn is a guy who says that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. And so it is, there's actually science behind that shows that, that people behave like the people they hang out with in more ways than one. It's like if you're all of a sudden hanging out with a bunch of fitness people, chances are you're going to get in better shape just by association, because that's what fitness people do. And so things like that, but,
also,
no, that's awesome.
I wanted to mention, I was really terrified when I was changing my major that all of my AK Psi buddies were going to disown me. Like, how can you leave the business world? You're going to study Spanish. Like, what is this? And I was really terrified, like, crying many days and nights over.
No.
I mean, sorry, not AK Psi in particular, just this whole very earth-shattering experience of changing my major, but yeah. AK Psi included. And I remember very specifically the first person I sat down with to tell that I was changing my major. And they were so proud of me and they were like supporting me, and that made me want to cry all over again. And then I like told all the people in the chapter, and everybody was just so supportive, and it was amazing. And so it was really felt the brotherhood there.
That's awesome. That's so great. That's what you would hope and can expect from a group of people who you consider to be very close with.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask too, because it sounds like travel, the background and fitness outside of for career pursuits, just around town, like where's somebody most likely to find you if they were to run into you in town or on the street, like what when you're downtime kind of thing?
Yeah. Nowadays I don't lift anymore. I lift probably once every 3 months, kind of when a friend wants to go lift. My thing now is yoga. I've really gotten into yoga the past couple of years. I really enjoy Bikram style yoga. It's hot yoga, and 84 ghost style yoga, which is the original series that Bikram was derived from. And so the 84 is about a 2-hour class, and it's also termed advanced class, and kind of in that vein, but also separately, I've really gotten into handstands and inversions. So I spend a lot of my time, I mean, not that much recently. I I found the most progress in my handstands when I actually don't train them like a maniac, because when you're training them too much, you really wear out the wrists, and it's kind of just like mentally like, like I'm not doing well today. But yeah, my handstands they're pretty good now.
Too funny. So when spring comes and the weather serves, somebody sees somebody doing a handstand, there's a fair chance it's probably going to be you, right?
Yeah,
that's
for
what
sure.
that's going to be. I love it.
Trying to get
That's
tan in the
summer. That's so good. Couple of just quick, questions that I try to ask everybody. And so, the last couple of things. Well, first off, is there anything that touch on that you thought that would be beneficial, or something in your experience that would help a brother out, would or anybody for that matter? Is there something that you kind of had a mind to touch on that we didn't cover yet?
Yeah, especially for people who are still in college, such a wonderful time to just like be in this like training mode and like absorption mode, and people are so willing to go out of their way to help you. When you're in college, just like cold emailing someone and being like, I want to come like follow you around for like a couple hours, or I want to sit down and have a cup of coffee and just like find out about what you do. And like you can do that after you've graduated, but I think it's so easy to do that when you're in college. Is just reach out and really get a feel for what different fields are about, especially if you're having doubts about your business major. You're not sure if you want to be in business when you graduate, and that can be a really scary place to be. I know about that, so definitely feel free to reach out to me if that is you. But yeah, I think figuring out exactly what you want to do is a product of time and reflection. So there's no rush. You get there when you need to get there. So I don't know exactly where I was going with that. Just like connect with people while you're in college.
Yeah, 100%. I think that makes sense a lot too, because it gives folks the opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm in college," which opens the door to, okay, you're just looking for information, versus I'm out of school and there's some other kind of. I just think it makes it easier to say yes to somebody who's in college. So that's awesome. No, that's great. One of the last question kind of that I had is aside from going back in time and giving advice to yourself, is there anybody now, I mean, that you're listening to on podcasts, or that you follow their books, or who do you take your advice from now, moving forward?
So there's this lady named Esther Perel, and she is a love and relationships like therapist. She's I think she's a psychotherapist, or psychoanalyst or something. I don't know what the difference is or what the definition is actually. But she is so amazing at just like breaking down the human psyche. Like someone says like a few things about the relationship, and she just like hits the nail on the head. And I mean, because like relationships and communication are at the center of everything we do, right? And so it's really interesting to listen to these talks, because it's more than just how do I maintain my love life. It's about like how do I like stay true to myself in this relationship, and how do I connect with another human and maybe make some compromises for them at the same time. And those are themes that like are throughout all relationships that we have.
That's awesome. You'll have to send me over the link or something.
I will.
I'll put it in the show notes for people too.
I will.
That's awesome. So how can people, if somebody heard something, or they got questions, or they just want to reach out and say hello, what's the best way for somebody to follow you, or to reach out, or to be connected? How should they go about that?
Yeah. So my email is probably the best. It's Emi, emi.preston@gmail.com. And this will probably go in the box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And then you can also reach out to me.
I don't have to if you don't want to. They can just listen and find you.
All right, emi.preston@gmail.com. And then you can also find me on Facebook. It's just Emi Preston, and you can send me a message there. And then I'm also on Instagram. There's the Benching Beauties Instagram that you can follow. I haven't been super active on there recently. I was trying to kind of like reduce my screen time and unplug a little bit because I just realized I was spending like just mindless hours scrolling on my phone, and I really hated it. So I uninstalled Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram from my phone.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah, and it feels so liberating. I don't know when I'm gonna reinstall them. But
you may as well live in a cabin in the woods. This is crazy.
Basically. So yeah, you can definitely follow there. Even though new content is not currently going up, there's a lot of old content that you might find interesting, and I have some handstand videos on there. Yeah, so I think those are the best ways. Hello?
Yeah, it just went a little quiet right there at the end. Well, shoot, yeah, I'll if you send me some links, I'll put that stuff in the show notes, and that way I can make sure to spell the Instagram and the app name correctly. But I really appreciate you making time for us this morning. I hope that there's a ton of great value here. Your story, the more times I do these, the more that the stories, they're aligned. People who are really chasing it and really getting after things for themselves and building strong communities. There's a lot of things that they're doing and have in common. So I really appreciate you making time to share your story with us, and hopefully we'll get a chance to maybe I'll still be doing this in 20 years, and we can see how much things have progressed for you then.
For sure. Thank you for making time to interview.
Yeah, I'm stoked. So, all right, guys, we're going to sign off. Appreciate you watching and spending time with us, and we'll see you on the next one.